Szanowni Państwo, witam Państwa bardzo serdecznie.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome very cordially at another press conference of the National Electoral Commission devoted to local government elections. With us here we have head of the Commission, Judge Chmieliński, as well as members of the Commission, Judge Buś, Judge Cieślak, and the Secretary of the Commission, and at the same time, Head of the National Election Office, Ms. Pietrzak. Over to you, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me read out to you the message of the National Electoral Commission. The announcement pertains to partial unofficial results of elections as of 11:30 a.m. on the 22nd of October. Based on information obtained electronically from 90,580 protocols of election results in districts approved by territorial election commissions, out of the total number of 117,810 protocols, the National Electoral Commission informed you as following. A. Partial and official results of elections for reeves, mayors and presidents of cities are as follows. The total number of people eligible to vote was 24,793,113 people. Number of valid ballot papers, 13,401,932. Out of the total number of 2,477 elected reeves, mayors and presidents of cities, the results of elections were determined in 1,765 units. Partial and official results of elections for district councils are as follows. The total number of people eligible to vote, 23,851,251. Valid ballot papers, 12,944,791. Out of the total number of 2,477 municipalities, results are available for 1,745. Out of the total number of 18 districts in the capital city of Warsaw, the results are known for 0 councils, so there is no council in which the results would be known already. Partial and official results of the elections for district councils, the total number of people eligible to vote, 13,066,582. Valid ballot papers, 7,052,978. Out of the total number of 314 districts, results are known in 17 district councils. Partial and official results of the elections for provincial assemblies, the number of people eligible to vote, 19,806,624. The number of valid ballot papers, 10,613,697. Out of the total number of provincial assemblies, 16. In none are the results known. That's it when it comes to the announcement. Thank you very much, sir. Now, do we have any questions? Ewa Hyra, Polish Radio. Good afternoon. My question relates to online registration of voters and adding your name to the register of voters. We know that there were some problems with that. We just finished a conference of the Ministry of Digitization, who says that the offices are to blame. My question goes to you. What can voters do now? What's the scale of the phenomenon? That's unknown, but we know that it's not just a handful of people. What can the voters do? How can they protest? How can they object? Where should they address it to? Will the Commission handle this topic? Well, this topic is regulated in the Electoral Code. The duty to run the register of voters lies with the reeves, mayors and presidents. Therefore, if voters submitted a request for their names to be added to the register of voters, the reeve, mayor or president is obliged to issue a decision within 3 days. The decision can be positive or negative. If there are any doubts, because the Reeve mayor and president may have such doubts, he or she is obliged to verify the place of permanent residence indicated in the request. So if there are any doubts, the decision is negative, and then the voter has 3 days to object to district court to the decision, and then the court has another period of 3 days to issue a ruling in this case. That's the procedure, and the National Electoral Commission is not an entity participating in the procedure. Most likely, there are several different scenarios. For instance, the office did not issue the decision in time, and I am assuming that that might be the case because there's no certainty whatsoever. The office has 3 days for that, but perhaps in Warsaw, for instance, because that's where we get our information from, there were just individual cases all over Poland. The information that we have, as I said before, pertained to Warsawers. And it is very probable that the office did not expect such a high number of requests at the very last date. Perhaps they simply didn't manage to do it in time, but I'm not certain about it. Only the city office can give you precise information about that. If a voter did not receive any information about the decision, it is possible that the information was sent via the internet portal, via regular mail. Once the voter obtains a decision, be it positive or negative, because that's compulsory, then he or she may choose what to do. The voter may object, appeal, or maybe he or she will be added to the list of voters. Maybe he or she will be able to participate in the second round of elections or in the next elections. Adding a name to the register means that a person is part of the register for the future until the next change of the place of residence or until the next request for entry into the register of voters is submitted by such a person. As I said, the situations may be different in the case of individual people. Perhaps the office still had time and simply the request was submitted too late. Maybe the voters did not present enough evidence to support the data presented in the request. Maybe the office had some doubts. It's a very short period of time. Bear that in mind, please. The office has only 3 days, so if the voter did not assist the office in the decision-making process, the effect may be that in a case of doubts, the decision will be negative. Another question, Polsat News. Good afternoon, Magdalena Cemker. Do you know how many people cast their votes once the polling stations 6 or 7 were already closed? And what time did the voting finish there? We have no information about it. The people who participated in the voting there, as we already said in one of the press conferences, were people who, in line with the code, came to the polling station before 9 p.m. They simply were not able to fit in, to squeeze in. And at 9 p.m., members of the Commission decided to make sure that there are no more people entering the polling station. They were watching the queue. This was just a technicality in normal situations in other polling stations. That was not frequent. We only observed it in 7 polling stations, and they were able to overcome it pretty quickly. What about the turnout data? It's still changing. Do you have any information about the highest turnout and the lowest turnout? Maybe you could compare it with the elections from 4 years ago. Well, we have no information about it, no news in this respect. The data is incomparable. We are obtaining the protocols gradually, and we cannot give you any definite data. We were trying to make some calculations, but these are not definite. We don't know where we got the protocols from, actually. Małgorzata Naukowicz, Polish Radio. My question relates to the elections for Reeves, mayors and presidents. Will we know the data today? When would there be only one round, and where will we have a second round? Is that already known? Or will we only learn more about the data in the future? The data that we have as of now were read to you 1,765 locations where the results are already known. Gradually they will appear on our website after this conference, but we are not certain to tell you when that will happen. Of course, the bigger the municipality, the bigger the town, the longer it will last, because there's simply a higher number of votes. SK Radio, Michał Skolimowski. I know this topic has already been touched upon. What I mean is Łódź and the vast majority of votes cast for Ms. Zdanowska. Will she be able to take the position? What does it look like with such an overwhelming majority? This is a question we should ask ourselves. The National Electoral Commission or the Election Office are not the bodies authorized to decide in this respect and to foresee what will happen. If what you're saying is true, the results up until now point to the fact that there won't be any second round and Ms. Zdanowska has already been elected, then we will have to follow the Act on employees of local government units and authorities. It's hard for me to say what will happen, what decision will be taken by the provincial governor. Will a substitute decision be issued? I don't know. I may only make some guesses, but that's not the point here. Grzegorz Kozieł, TOK FM. Do you have any information about the works of commission disrupting the functioning, for instance, of schools where the polling stations were located? We did get such questions, indeed, whether the Commission can be transferred to any other location, but during its works the Commission cannot change the place where it operates. We forwarded the information to local government bodies that prepared the polling stations. We told them that during local government elections we are almost 100% certain that in the morning on the next day the commissions will still be working, because the process of counting the votes is really lengthy. There's a lot of work to be done. Local governments should have expected that. I think there was only one delegation office. I can't actually recall the name of the place. Yes, that was perhaps Warsaw. But we only got from that the information that they will not be able to leave the location. That's what we confirmed with them. Krzysztof Zasada, RMF Radio. Do you have any information about the number of people who worked and are working in the commissions during the elections? Were there any signals that the composition was too scarce? I read the information previously to you. Oh, there were over 460 people engaged in the elections altogether. We counted it before. Around 60% of all commissions had full composition, so the full panel was present. Of course, there were places in which we had 5 people only, which was the minimum threshold. And I'm sure that this was a difficult task, of course. Let's not forget that during previous elections, under the previous law, there was no obligation to have 2/3 of the composition present. Normally we had teams of 3. The people who had to start work very early in the morning, they had to be present in the polling station throughout the day and then count the votes. So it was a normal thing for the people to share the load, and it was normal that the head or the deputy head would be present in the polling station, but the rest would exchange. It's not a new thing. Right now, 4 people had to be present. When the turnout was higher, this was definitely a difficulty. If we had more people in the commission, we would be able to handle everything more quickly. No, we didn't. That was not possible. The heads of commissioner watched it. Artur Molenda, Superstacja. What about errors in protocols? I understand that you're receiving them, then they are verified by high-rank commissions. Do you have any data about the errors in protocols, and what are these? We don't have any detailed data, but I can tell you that the errors don't change. For instance, missing signature, missing stamp, missing information about the statesman, something filled in incorrectly. These are such mistakes. Sometimes there's no reference to an objection of the statesman. When it comes to errors in counting, these could be spotted immediately at the preparation stage of the protocol thanks to the digital app. The protocol that reaches the Territorial Commission doesn't have any such errors. There could be just minor shortcomings, and the Commission has to correct them. Ewa Chyra, Polish Radio. What about one municipality in Łódź province, Działoszyn? Before the elections, one of the candidates, and there were two, was crossed out from the list, from the ballot paper. Do you know the topic? Because the said candidate announced that he would lodge a voters' protest. Do you know the topic, and what will happen now if such a protest is lodged? Well, I don't know what the person will do. You're telling me that if he wants to lodge a protest, yes, if he feels that he was aggrieved and lawlessly crossed out from the list, 14 days is a deadline for lodging such a protest to the court, and the court will decide based on different evidence and documents handed over to the court. Do you know the topic? What was the reason? The reason was as following. The candidate presented a statement that he was a member of a certain party, and the local office of the party sent us documents that for some while now the person had not been its member, so it was an untrue statement, and that is the basis for crossing the name out from the list. The gentleman states that he is a member of the party. The question is, why was he crossed out immediately before the election day? Hard to say why the Commission did it so late. The documents that we had access to, that were sent to us, did not show that he was a member of the party. Quite on the contrary, the documents confirmed that his membership ended, and local representatives of Law and Justice, the party, stated clearly that he was not the member of their party, and I think the authorities of the party know best who is a member and who is not. Thank you very much indeed. Final question? If there are no further questions, I'd like to thank you very much indeed, and I'd like to invite you to the next press conference at 6:15 p.m.